Revolution feels like freedom until the ruthless fill the empty space. Liberty doesn't survive on passion alone. It survives on habits, character, and the slow work of inheritance. Edmund Burke believed freedom isn't built in a day, and it can be lost in a day. He defended liberty by defending the past that made it possible, because the past holds lessons that keep power from going absolute. This is the story of Edmund Burke, the keeper of order and tradition. A man who welcomed reform but feared the shortcut of revolution without virtue. He lived in an age that thought it could redesign society like a machine. Burke answered with a warning that still echoes: tear down the moral and social supports of liberty, and you won't get freedom. You'll get a vacuum, and the vacuum will be filled by force. The world that formed Burke. The 1700s are loud with new ideas. Coffee houses buzz, pamphlets spread like wildfire, and politics becomes a public sport. Argument, satire, and ambition on every street corner. Britain is an empire of ships and trade, but also an empire of competing interests. Its political order is a balancing act: monarchy, parliament, local custom, and the growing pressure of public opinion. Across the Atlantic, the American colonies are learning self-government by practice. They are far enough away to develop habits of independence, yet close enough to insist they still carry the rights of Englishmen. Across the Channel, France is heading toward a reckoning. Debt, inequality, and a rigid social structure strain the seams, while new philosophies promise a clean slate and a new world. Into this world, Edmund Burke is born in 1729 in Dublin, Ireland. Ireland's religious and political divisions teach him early that power can become contempt, and contempt can become policy. Burke grows up where identity is political. He learns that stability isn't automatic. People must choose it, and leaders can destroy it. He studies history and rhetoric, the tools of persuasion in an age where words can move nations. Burke comes to believe the past is not a prison. It is a library of human experience. Before he is famous, he is a writer trying to understand what holds societies together. He becomes convinced that human beings are not abstract citizens on paper. They are families, neighbors, believers, skeptics, and workers shaped by culture. Eventually, Burke enters the British Parliament. He steps into a chamber where ideals collide with budgets, wars, and pride, and where every decision has consequences for real people. Burke is not a man of slogans. He is a man of moral seriousness, insisting that political power must answer to something higher than ambition. He believes liberty is precious, but also fragile. A free society survives only when people can govern themselves, and self-government requires restraint. For Burke, restraint is not oppression. It is the inner discipline that prevents freedom from becoming chaos. When citizens cannot restrain themselves, they begin demanding that government restrain everyone else. He watches intellectuals treat society like a blueprint. They speak as if a nation can be reset, as if old institutions are merely broken parts to be discarded. Burke rejects that arrogance. A nation is not a machine, and a constitution is not merely ink. It is lived tradition, precedent, and trust built slowly over time. America and the question of legitimacy. The American dispute drags philosophy into the realm of fire and steel. After costly wars, London wants revenue and tighter control, and it reaches for taxes and enforcement. To many in Britain, the solution is simple: discipline the colonies, make them submit, and prove that authority is authority. Burke warns that this is a dangerous misunderstanding. You can command obedience, but you cannot command loyalty, and a free people will not be governed like conquered subjects. He argues for conciliation, not because he celebrates rebellion, but because he understands legitimacy. Governments endure when citizens believe rule is just, not merely unavoidable. Burke's insight is brutally practical. Treat people like enemies, and you will produce enemies. Then you use the backlash as an excuse to harden power even further. He tells Parliament to respect inherited liberties because those liberties are what bind the system together. If Britain forgets what makes it legitimate, it will discover how quickly legitimacy can disappear. In Burke's view, pride is expensive. It turns disagreements into existential fights, and it tempts leaders to use force where patience might have worked. History moves where Burke feared it would. The break widens, the colonies revolt, and the empire learns that coercion can win moments but lose centuries. France and the terrible shortcut. Then France erupts and the world watches. Many cheer the French Revolution as a sunrise, liberty, equality, and a fresh start after generations of privilege. Burke pauses. He looks beyond the speeches and asks what methods are being used, because methods reveal the future more reliably than slogans. He sees not careful reform, but demolition. Institutions fall in rapid succession. Church authority, traditional law, local customs, swept away as if history itself were a stain. Revolutionaries claim they will rebuild society from pure reason. Burke calls this arrogance, the belief that abstract theory can replace the accumulated wisdom of generations. He asks the question that cuts through the excitement. If you dissolve everything at once, what stands between the people and naked power? Someone will fill the vacuum, and the ruthless rarely wait their turn. Burke writes Reflections on the Revolution in France to sound the alarm. He is not defending every injustice of the old order. He is defending the guardrails that keep power from going absolute. He argues that rights cannot survive without duties. When a people are trained only to demand, they lose the moral equipment required to remain free. Liberty without virtue becomes license, and license invites the crackdown that always follows, because a society that cannot govern itself will be governed by force. Burke also sees how purity turns political movements cruel. If the future is imagined as perfect, then any person who stands in the way becomes disposable. His warning is not theoretical for long. The revolution turns toward terror, tribunals, purges, executions, and fear becomes the new constitution. A movement that promised liberation begins enforcing conformity. When everyone is suspect, the only safe position is obedience. Burke's message lands like a thunderclap. The road to tyranny is often paved with promises of freedom. The worst chains can be forged in the name of emancipation. Tradition, duty, and the little platoons. Burke is often caricatured as saying, "never change." But his argument is the opposite. Change is necessary because injustice is real and corruption is constant. His claim is about how change should happen. Reform should resemble repair. Strengthen what is load-bearing, replace what is rotten, and keep the structure standing while you work. That requires humility. No generation is wise enough to rewrite human nature, and no political class is wise enough to rebuild society from scratch. Burke describes society as a partnership across time, the living, the dead, and those yet to be born. You don't own civilization like property, you steward it like an inheritance. And the inheritance is guarded by what he calls the little platoons. Families, congregations, neighborhoods, and civic associations teach loyalty, responsibility, and love of something beyond the self. Central power can provide services, but it cannot replace belonging. When people lose local bonds, they become easier to mobilize, easier to manipulate, and easier to rule by fear. This is why Burke insists that moral order matters, not as a demand for uniformity, but as the inner architecture of self-government. Self-government is not merely voting. It is the daily practice of restraint, honesty, duty, and reverence for what you did not create. The keeper of order and tradition. So what is Burke's legacy? He becomes a foundation for conservatism properly understood, not the worship of the old, but the discipline to preserve what makes liberty livable. He reminds reformers to keep what is load-bearing, and he reminds revolutionaries that chaos is a doorway tyrants love to walk through. The question is never whether power will exist, but whether power will be limited. Burke teaches that liberty needs order, and order needs legitimacy, because law without consent becomes coercion. Tradition is not the enemy of freedom. Often it is the framework that makes freedom possible. And he leaves us a permanent test. When you hear promises to remake everything overnight, ask who gets the power during the transition and what restraints will remain when the dust settles. Edmund Burke defended freedom by defending the past that formed it, not to freeze history, but to keep liberty from committing suicide. Reform with wisdom, not revolt without virtue, because the balance between liberty and social stability is the difference between freedom and fear. The fight for liberty never ends. It only changes hands.